What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you the first entry in what is supposed to be a series about the story of Divinity 2. Now, a couple of preamble notes just real quick. Divinity 2 is technically the latest in the Divinity game series timeline. The events of Divinity 2 are the most current. Now, that said, with the game's original Sin story arc that they're currently working on, and with Divinity Fallen Heroes announced, we can't really say when this story is going to be picked up, but again, in terms of events, this is the most current information. So, if you're confused about Divinity's series timeline, which is incredibly easy to be, I recommend you check out the Divinity series timeline video on my channel, which should clear up some things and tell you when all of the games take place. There are some plot holes, just straight up, because there are literally two canon sources that say something entirely different. So there are a few plot holes here and there, but other than that, it's pretty accurate. Jumping right into it, in Divinity 2, you play as a Dragon Knight. But before you're a Dragon Knight, you start out as a Dragon Slayer, which is a bit on the opposite end of the spectrum. So, you start by creating your character in a... So, I hate this character creator. I'm just going to level with you guys. It's so limiting. It's almost like, why is it even here? Like, I would almost have just rather a specific protagonist than deal with, like, the worst character creator I've ever had. As much as I enjoy the Divinity series games, plenty of them have their flaws, and I think it's okay to call them out, as you probably just noticed. So, after you make your character, there's some cutscenes, and then you start out in Farglow. Now, your purpose in Farglow is to finish your Slayer initiation. You have been in training as a Dragon Slayer for quite a long time, roughly the last 10 years or so, and today is the day of your initiation where you graduate to become a full-blown Dragon Slayer. Now, after a short conversation with Commander Rhodes, who is like the Dragon Slayer elite, you're basically going to go to this town, you're going to talk to a few people who are going to explain some things previously not told to you, and then you can be on your way. So after getting stopped at the gate by a guy who tells you basically the same thing, but also tells you very specifically to go talk to Morgana by the shrine, which is up a little path. So when you get to Morgana, she explains the Slayer ritual. Now, the Slayer ritual, and the means by which Dragon Slayers are honestly able to kill dragons, is that there is a ritual that gives an individual all of a dragon's memories. Now, this is what actually gives you the ability to fight a dragon and, potentially win. Morgana performs this ritual after explaining to you that while the ritual is powerful, it also tends to rob the recipient of their actual memories, because the ritual was intended to be used on a dragon's brain. Obviously, you're not a dragon, so all of your training up to this point has been to get you ready for this ritual, and that once it's performed, you will be able to see the dead, which is just a cool side effect. Your eyes will turn silver, and you'll have all of the memories of dragons and all of their weaknesses and things like that. So it's a pretty cool ritual overall. But again, you will actually lose all of your memories, other than the very basic, like, muscle memory type stuff. So it comes with a pretty big cost, which is why there aren't a lot of Dragon Slayers around. Now from here, she tells you to go talk to Isabel. So you cannot miss Isabel on your way back into Farglow from the shrine. It's like she blocks your path. There's pretty much no way actually to get around her. There's actually no way to get around her, and she's supposed to also teach you something special. So she explains that when Dragon Slayers were raiding a Dragon Knights, which is something I'll get to here in just a second, base, that they found a spell that dragons use to read people's minds, which is another reason the Dragon Slayer ritual is important, because in addition to giving you all this memory and stuff, the ritual actually protects you from dragons' mind attacks. Because apparently, Dragon Knights have such a strong presence of will, and dragons in general, have such a strong presence of will that they can basically just dominate a person's mind just with their presence, which makes them pretty deadly to human beings in general. And the ritual is a form of protection against that, because otherwise there would be no fighting them, because the fight would be over before it started. So from there, the last thing you have to do before you can leave Farglow is you have to talk to a combat veteran, and they will basically give you a small spell that will give you some memories of one of the basic combat disciplines, which, as you might imagine, is of course warrior, ranger, or mage in this particular case. talk to one of them, they'll give you the spell, you'll get some basic abilities for that archetype, and you can move on. And Commander Road explains that this is the point where they would normally take you back to the Dragon Slayer's fortress of sorts and finish your initiation, because there's a second part of it, which is a ritual to help you handle all of the memories from the dragon ritual that you just received. Otherwise, your mind will snap and you'll go crazy. However, there have been reports of a dragon sighting in the Broken Valley area. And because it's a dragon and they're dragon slayers, that takes precedence over you potentially losing your mind. All of you pack up and go to Broken Valley, where Commander Road has the other dragon slayers start fanning out to search for the dragon, and she herself goes to talk to the captain of the guard in the nearby village, and she sends you to go talk to villagers of said town to try to find out where the dragon has been seen at. Now, you can pretty much just ask around town here. You need to have heard about the dragon 3 times and then go talk to Commander Road. She is, of course, where she said she would be, talking to the captain of the guard in the guard's barracks. Now, when you talk to her, she appreciates your information, and you have a small outburst because of the dragon ritual not being completed. This is where Commander Road sends you to go fight an undead, which is apparently part of the process to finish the ritual that you'd started. So you head off to the chapel's crypt to do exactly that, and you fight an undead, exactly as it says. However, it actually turns out that this undead is a dragon slayer of old, and for defeating his ghostly form, he gives you his sword. Now, when you exit the crypt, you meet up with Commander Road, who's like, "Oh my god, you met the ghost of this super awesome dragon slayer guy. However, your initiation isn't finished, so I'm gonna need that sword because we gotta go kill this dragon." And doesn't invite you to help kill the dragon because, with your initiation not actually complete, facing the dragon would leave you open to its mental attacks and you would be done for. In blatant disregard for an obvious warning, we go follow Commander Road and the other dragon slayers to go find this dragon. Now, when we get to the spot that the quest marker leads us to, and really the only path out of the area, we bump into Talana, injured by the very sword you just got for Commander Road. So Talana was able to escape the assault of the other dragon slayers, but she is grievously wounded and she is about to die. So because you find her and you are not guarded against her mental attacks, she seizes the opportunity to give all of her power as a dragon knight to you, a dragon slayer, which is where the story really starts to take off. Now, Talana uses the opportunity to explain a few plot points, and I'm going to use the opportunity to also do that. So the difference between a dragon and a dragon knight, to the common people of Rivellon, the Divinity game's Earth, if you will, is unnoticeable. So what actually happened is that dragons were an old race of their own. For reasons unknown to people, they just decided they didn't want to hang out anymore. So they all seem to have just reclused themselves for an unexplained reason. And in doing so, rather than continue to go out into the world, the dragons, otherwise known as the Old Race, decided to go amongst the other races of Rivellon and hand-select people. Exactly what the dragons are looking for in a person is unclear. However, once they had selected someone and properly trained them, they granted power to these people that then became known as the Dragon Knights. However, over time, these Dragon Knights were even able to take on a draconic form themselves, just straight up become a dragon, and because of that, while Dragon Knights are factually not as strong as actual dragons are so rare and have just straight up not been seen in forever that Dragon Knights became interchangeable with the actual terms of dragons. So a Dragon Knight is just considered a dragon, really. So with that explanation out of the way, after you wake from Talana's dream showing you the devastation that is going to happen to the world, you are awoken by Damien the Damned One, from the previous game, Beyond Divinity. I also have a series explaining that story as well, if you want to catch up on it. But Damien the Damned One is the bad guy, as the Damned One title would probably tell you. So he wakes you up, basically explains that don't even think about trying to stop him, which seems like a weird thing for a villain to do rather than just kill you outright, but we'll get to that later on in the series. So, after this conversation, you have an immediate follow-up conversation with Zandalor, who is another repeating character from the original Divine Divinity game. Technically, he has a small role in Beyond Divinity, but it's also not really him, so I don't think that really counts. However, Zandalor is a big central character of Divine Divinity, and in Divinity 2, he shows up, basically tells you where you need to go next, as well as alludes to something about the truth of Talana's motives, which is the Dragon Knight that just died and gave you all of her power. So Zandalor directs you to go see Lovis, a long-dead Dragon Knight. Remember, you can see ghosts now. And his tower is not too far away. So, the Broken Valley area that you are in was actually ruled by Dragon Knights, because as you might imagine, being able to have all this power as a person turned Dragon Knights into either great rulers or, basically tyrants. So, in days of old, they controlled quite a bit of territory. Now, Lovis is one such person who has long been gone. When you finally get to Lovis, which actually involves a small outside dungeon of sorts, kind of some puzzles and stuff, Lovis actually also explains some really cool plot points. So the setup to Divinity 2 is that Lucian the Divine has been murdered by a Dragon Knight. And because of this supposed betrayal of the Dragon Knights, who had agreed to help Lucian against Damien's forces because he had recently escaped Nemesis through the events of Beyond Divinity. Again, these Dragon Knights supposedly betrayed Lucian the Divine and murdered him by stabbing him in the back. However, Lovis explains to you that this just straight up isn't true, that the Damned One, Damien, actually mind-controlled the Dragon Knight, because he's the Damned One, and was able to use that influence to basically stage an assassination on Lucian the Divine. Because of this, it also explains what Talana was referring to earlier in your conversation, that things aren't always what they appear, and that the Dragon Slayers hunting down the Dragon Knights is just wrong, and basically it's founded on this mistruth that has been perpetuated, and it's why Zandalor, a big friend of Lucian the Divine, has actually never prosecuted the Dragon Knights himself, which also caused Zandalor to fall out of favor a little bit. And lastly, and for the wrap-up of this particular part, Lovis sends us to the fortress of his old Dragon Knight master. So all Dragon Knights are powerful, but they also all ultimately answer to someone, right? So most Dragon Knights in the area answered to like a supreme Dragon Knight known as Maxos. So Maxos is the guy who is going to give us the ability to turn into a dragon. Not himself personally, because Maxos, like everyone else, is long dead, but he did leave the means and trials for you to pass, for anyone to pass really. That could then of course grant you your dragon form, because just being a Dragon Knight doesn't automatically mean you get to turn into a dragon. So Lovis sends you off to find Maxos, which will give you your dragon power, which is basically necessary to continue onward as a Dragon Knight. Dragon Slayer turned Dragon Knight, that is, even. So with that, guys, that is going to wrap up part 1. So just some quick notes on this. I like the game, I like the setup, but in my opinion, this first little act of the game just blitzes through so much story that if this is the first game you're playing, it's not paced to the point where you're not going to be able to keep up. It's just paced so fast. It's like they just crammed all this story into one part, and it's comprehensible. I'll give them that. It just seems like it's moving so quickly. There you go, guys. That is part 1. Hopefully I will have part 2 up before too long, in which we will explore Maxos' temple and go through some more story stuff we got to do. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But more than anything, thank you for watching and have a great day.